I'm just waiting for the last comers to arrive, but good morning everyone and welcome to this EU Circular Talks on Circular Design, make it from theory to reality, which is, I guess, quite an interesting challenge that we're trying to face on this Monday morning. You all know that there are numerous challenges to overcome to ensure that current innovation and models on circular economy can be further upscale and mainstream. And in order to close the loops, there will be a requirement for substantial investment, and as well as policy enabling program. And I think that's the main idea why we're gathering here today, in order to discuss these very interesting topics. But before I start, I would like to, well, first of all, thank you all of the speakers to joining us, but also all of you participants to come and listen to what we have to say in this EU Circular Talks. This event will be recorded and will be put on the EU Circular Talks, EU Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform website, so you will be able to access it later, along with the presentation that we will have today. I'm really hoping to get an interactive event. I'm really happy to not be the only one asking questions. If you want to ask questions, please do so through the chat. We also will make a form, so some questions available through the chat as well. And also, last but not least, I'm very happy to invite you to join also our LinkedIn group, where you can also continue the conversation during and after this event. As you know, we have an amazing lineup of speakers today, and I'm really happy to welcome several of them in the first discussion, which is, first of all, the introduction on setting the theme. So how can we frame the debate and discuss what are the policy needs to enable circular design? This will be followed up by hopefully discussions with different representatives from the regulators, the retailers, myself, and from the consumer organizations. Without further ado, I'm happy to invite Stefano Soro to take the floor. He's head of unit for DG Grow. He has an extensive experience in the EU institutions through different units. As head of unit, he's been part of the medical products, part of the unit of food and industry, and last but not least, since March 21, he's been the head of unit of the new and green and circular economy at DG Grow. Stefano, the floor is yours. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so you can have the full screen for yourself.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all the participants, and thanks to EuroCommerce for the invitation. Given the expertise in particular of the following panels, I think I'll just try to spend the 10 minutes or so that I've been allocated to frame a bit the discussion and give a bit of background to the work that with the Commission we have undertaken in the field of circular economy. Those of us who are more or less my age and who have children like I do, I have a 21-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old son, have heard really many times recently slogans like "we have only one planet" or "there is no planet B." Well, these are not slogans. This is just, frankly, a plain stock taking. We have unequivocal projections on climate change and its causes, with an increase in temperatures and even more visibly of extreme meteorological phenomena, which most recently clearly intensified, including in our regions. It's no secret to anyone what happened in Belgium, and in particular in the west of Belgium, in the east of Belgium and the west of Germany and the Netherlands last summer. We have only one planet, but we're squeezing it already beyond what's sustainable. And if we continue on the current trajectories, by 2050, we will consume resources, erode biodiversity, and produce emission as if we had 3 planets. The most credible estimates indicate that the global consumption of materials such as biomass, fossil fuels, metals, and other minerals on the current trajectories will double from here to 2050. Only in the European Union, every year, we use about 8 gigatons of raw materials and materials, which is equivalent to, well, those of my generation who saw the movie, it's 160,000 Titanic ships. Or for those who used to fly, it's 24 million Boeing 747s. Or for everyone, that's 16 times the weight of the whole world population every year. Given that our economy is still almost exclusively linear, so extraction, production, marketing, use, consumption, destruction, the great majority of these 8 gigatons ends up as waste quite rapidly. Only 12% of these, so about 1 gigaton, has some form of maintenance in the economy with some form of circularity. As European citizens and consumers, and I spent a long part of my career working on consumer issues, we experience every day these inefficiencies in our daily life, products that break down, that become obsolete or unusable too soon, that cannot be reused or are not designed to be reused at the end of their life, recycled or repaired, or that are immediately, directly planned for single use. On a global scale, this linearity, by the way, pushed and fueled by fossil fuels, which have very high environmental impacts from extraction to use phase emissions, has a huge environmental footprint. Climate change and the degradation of the environment are an existential threat to Europe and the Earth. In the European Union, to safeguard our natural environment, at the same time strengthen our economic competitiveness, we must rapidly transition to a model of economy which is fully circular or almost fully circular. And I would like to underline that these are not the fantasies of a Swedish teenager. This is, hard data with, an equivocal mainstream scientific background. And another point I would like to make is that circular economy is economy. Manufacturing industries in Europe spend about 40% of their turnover on materials. On material inputs. This means that maintaining these material inputs in the economy as long as possible, preserving their economic value, and generating the lowest possible amount of waste and the lowest possible environmental impact makes economic and financial sense. Also because the famous projections that I was mentioning before contain also projections on GDP in case we do nothing and we keep squeezing the planet like a lemon or 3 lemons, which are rather disastrous. One point that is very important that I would like to make is that this transition, this green transition, as we call it, green transition, clearly has to be global because GHG emissions, climate change, biodiversity loss do not stop at the borders of the European Union, which is responsible, I think, for something between 8 and 10% of the global GHG emissions. So if we just stop at defining very strict rules and ambitious objectives which apply exclusively to us and to our industry, we would end up desertifying industrially and economically Europe without doing any favor to the global environment and climate. We would just leak carbon or export emissions. So our political and regulatory actions must be ambitious, must be rigorous, and at the same time, they have to aim to guarantee level playing field conditions in the global competitive arena and promote innovation, the adoption of front-runner solutions for the achievement of our climate and environment objectives. This is why, and I'm closing. We have the luck of having here William Neal, who's one of the gurus of circular economy at the Commission, and also works in a directorate with whom we work hand in hand in defining requirements for the sustainability of products with the Sustainable Product Initiative. But one point I would like to make today very strongly is that besides decarbonizing the sources of energy, besides developing renewable energy sources and investing in that, setting requirements for products which are based on sustainability for our market, regardless of where these products are made. And I was saying our market, the European Union market, we have the luck of having a market which is inevitable or unavoidable for whoever wants to be a player in the global arena, can make a great difference, a great positive difference on all the indicators that I mentioned before at a global level. We have seen a start of this when 16 years ago, the first Ecodesign and energy labeling legislation came into force. The difference that is made on the market for energy or energy and water using products like televisions, washing machines, dishwasher, fridges, etc., has made the philosophy that is pushing us, and we are seeing this already with the batteries regulation, which we are discussing now, negotiating with the co-legislators, and as of next spring with the Sustainable Product Initiative. We are taking that philosophy and expanding it vertically from an approach which is focusing on the use phase of a product. You take a washing machine, you plug it to a tap and an electrical mains, and then you measure how much water and how much electricity consumes per cycle or per year, to an approach that takes into account the whole life cycle of the products. And also we are, so from the design, extraction, production phase to end of life, and we are also extending the scope of the eco-design philosophy in terms of the kinds of product that were used. If you read the Circular Economy Action Plan, it identifies clearly and explicitly the priority groups of products, and they are electronics, of course, and they are furniture, textiles, ICT equipment, and also intermediates such as steel and cement. So this is a bit the framing of the work that we're doing on the basis of the Green Deal, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's a great introduction, putting also all of what we're doing in perspective to, facing the global climate change challenges. So it's greatly appreciated, and I think it just also, you're speaking to the choir, if we may say here. I think we are within an audience of people that tend to respond to those challenges. Without further ado, I would like to invite the other two panelists, so William and Sylvia, to join and respond to this great introduction. I think if I can, I'd like to also welcome, so William is, as mentioned, the advisor on circular economy and green growth for the European Commission's Environment Director General. He's served 11 years as a member of the cabinet in quite a high level and interesting cabinet member. You've been part of Janis Pokovic cabinet, and then Mr. Camilo Vela. And now you're also part of advisor on circular economy, resource and efficiency, and so on and so forth. You also had the opportunity to have quite a mixed career through beyond working for the European Commission. You've been working in the private sectors for 13 years. So I think you have, with those two hats, you can have this opportunity to help shape and provide the right policy enablers for the development of sustainable products. So with that in mind, what do you think should be the foundation for the development of more sustainable products? What do you have in mind? Can you hear me properly? Yes.
I hear you perfectly. I hope you can hear me well too.
Yes, but I had a notification. But yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the very nice introduction. Yeah, I think it's fantastic that I mean, it's very significant that Stefano and I are both speaking here today, because if you to look back, sort of quick history of the way environment policy is developed, today we're talking about using product policy, using single market tools. Environment policy only really started in the 1970s in Europe, and it was all based on legislation punishing polluters. And when we had sort of 200 new regulations in 20 years, which was very important and very useful, it did punish polluters, and it's a dissuasive effect as well. And it's only about 10 years ago that we really started talking about the more economic approaches, resource efficiency and circularity. And Serpo, who we'll talk later, was very much involved at that time as well, along with Janis Potočnik. And yet there was still obviously a perception, because of this sort of punishing polluters approach, that environment policies are constraints on growth and a constraint on competitiveness and imposed burdens and so on, which to a certain extent, of course, it did. But I think what we're seeing now, particularly with the European Green Deal, bringing environment, sort of the green and digital transitions, to the centre of our growth strategy, and then since the pandemic to the centre of the recovery strategy, is a real change. But I think we still have a lot of problems, because particularly in member states, we don't see that sort of joint ownership of the economics and industry ministries and the environment ministries. It's still very often circular economy is seen as being just something about recycling and for the environment minister. And we have to, I mean, out of our Brussels bubble, like you said, you know, preaching to the choir, outside of our bubble, there's still, I saw with the recovery and resilience funds, that there's still a lot to be done there. But as I say, what is really groundbreaking in the circular economy action plan this time, the one that we're now implementing, was this change to use product policy to expand, as Stefano was saying, the Ecodesign directive in scope and in the criteria. And it's, I think it will be extremely powerful. I mean, the design of products, as we keep saying, basically determines 80% of the impact of that product through its life cycle. We're sort of mobilizing the collective consumer power of sort of 450 million consumers to say, well, actually, we want to set clear thresholds for what we allow in our markets. So it is, as Stefano said, also very much about providing a level playing field. We're also saying it's not only about physical characteristics of products, it's also the digital characteristics. It's about requirements not only for physical things, which can have a huge impact. I mean, a small design change, which can be very little cost for the producer, can really make the difference between viability of circular business models for repair or whatever, for prolonging the life of the product down the line, and also for recycling. It can really make or break the viability of those models. But data also, I mean, if you don't have the data further down, we're working on the European Digital Product Passport. So, I mean, circular economy is about value retention, and so much of the value of a product is now bound up in the data that it should carry along throughout its life in the economy. And in order to sort of prolong that life, we need to not lose that data. So the product passport is very much about doing that. And I think it should be seen, and I'll finish with these words. I think you have to see it also. I mean, it is groundbreaking, and it'll take a while to come in, especially with implementing measures and so on. It'll be a few years before it really kicks in, I suppose. But I think you need to see the Sustainable Product Initiative in a wider perspective. Here we're talking about the threshold for what should be allowed on European markets. We're also implementing our strategies, value chain strategies for, I mean, we did plastics in 2018. We'll come up with textiles early next year. Then we're looking at circular electronics and building products and so on. So we have that sort of systemic, coherent approach as well, using regulation and economic instruments and so on. And also the taxonomy, which is more of a top runner approach. So we're bringing in circularity there, but rather than just being sort of thresholds to allow products on the market, it's really trying to define and classify what would provide a substantial contribution in terms of circular economy, amongst other things. So there we go. Happy to join the debate if we still have time later.
Thank you very much. I think you have summarized it, quite of the key challenges here. I'm now turning to Sylvia. So Sylvia, you have two heads, your Ecodesign project coordinator, both with ANEC, the European Consumer Voice in Standardization, and BEUC, which is the European Consumer Organization. So you follow the policy development on eco-design and energy labeling, as well as the related Circular Economy Action Plan initiative, such as the Sustainable Product Initiative. So here I have one question to ask you, and I think you can elaborate a bit more. I mean, what we see is that there is, on surveys, there is a lot of interest by consumers to have more sustainable consumption, and I would like to summarize it as citizens want consumer to be more sustainable. And how do you help into, or what's a consumers' perception on this, especially because you see there are other purchasing decisions than the product being sustainable. You have brand loyalty, you have price, you have convenience and availability. So how do you position yourself as representative of the sector, of the consumer, sorry, and what do you think, what do you expect from the Sustainable Product Initiative in terms of groundbreaking requirement?
Yeah, thank you very much, Isabel, and thank you for inviting me to this very, very interesting event. And indeed, there is growing demand from consumers, as you said, for more sustainable products. But what we have been saying for a long time, and what our member organization tell us about, is that sustainable products still are the exception on the market and not really the norm. And the main barriers for consumers to engage more in more sustainable consumption practices are, and Stefano already mentioned some of them. Firstly, that products, and sometimes even high-end products, tend to fail too soon, or just before we would expect them to. It is often quite difficult to repair products, and sometimes it's just not affordable, especially for low-income consumers. And another barrier is that too often products have misleading green claims. So it is very difficult from a consumer perspective to recognize real sustainable products from those products that misleadingly claim to do so. So to answer a bit your question, and for the purposes of really this panel, so how can policy help to bring more sustainable products on the market and address some of these challenges? I think I agree. We should focus on the successful experiences that we have already, and this is why, as BEUC and ANEC as well, we really support and welcome the Sustainable Product Initiative, and in particular the possible revision of the Ecodesign Directive. over the years, the Ecodesign instruments have brought so many real benefits, both in terms of environmental and energy savings, but also in terms of financial savings for consumers in their electricity bills. So this is why we really think the Ecodesign approach should be extended to more products, especially those that have quite a large environmental impact, and these include textile and furniture, but also connected products. And for example, also electric micromobility products, which are becoming increasingly, popular among consumers, but whose environmental impact is we think a bit underestimated or understudied. So this would be our first policy recommendation, and the second one would be indeed to broaden the focus of the Ecodesign instruments to more environmental and sustainability aspects beyond energy efficiency, as it is the case nowadays. Although we know that in 2019 some regulation have started to integrate a bit more resource efficiency. And these aspects would be durability, lifetime extension, reparability, and chemicals restrictions too. And this should be done in a coherent approach, of course, across sectors and products. Maybe here it's interesting to mention a recent study made by the German consumer group that they estimated that German households would save up to 4 billion every year if only 4 main products that are very common among consumers, so TVs, notebooks, washing machines, and smartphones, would last longer. So this also gives us a bit of an idea of the potentials, also economic-wise, of these policy actions. So really, to conclude, moving to a full circular economy, of course, requires a far larger systemic changes and a diverse pool of policy recommendations. But of course, we think that through the SPI and the revision of Ecodesign, these circular design principles that we're talking about today can really be translated in clear policy actions. I leave it to here, but I'm happy to join the discussion later on.
Thank you. I think there's a common agreement among all of the stakeholders here that the EU Ecodesign type of regulation makes sense in terms of ensuring that we can broaden the circularity of the products. I think I'm looking at you both here because, I mean, as EuroCommerce, sorry, I'm head of sustainability and environment for EuroCommerce, so I represent both retailers and wholesalers at EU level. And of course, we welcome this revision of the Ecodesign directive or the introduction of the SPI because it will help into defining the technicalities of such challenges, in a technical manner. So that will be my questions. I mean, we're speaking about extending the lifestyle of a product, and we're speaking about durability, but these are new concepts. In the Ecodesign, we used to have kind of technical approach about, the energy efficiency, the water use, and so on and so forth. Whereas here we're just touching upon an entire new range of definition, but also looking at a new ways of addressing it. When we looked at the when we used to be in this linear economy, I think the lifetime of a product was a bit easier to define, because when it was being destroyed, it was no longer waste. It was no longer being used. Now, whereas now, when it's being destroyed, it's just going to create new raw materials. So how do you want to address it in the European Commission? Do you have some thoughts that you want to share, some hints about what we can expect soon, or maybe William and Stefano? I don't know which one wants to start.
On the SPI? Well, I mean, as I said, look, we are, if you want a foretaste of what the SPI could look like for different categories of products, have a look at the draft regulation on batteries. On the kind of sustainability requirements you put in, which go beyond, I mean, brevity's sake, I didn't go into the breakdown of environmental, social, and economic sustainability. But I mean, we have due diligence on those metals that are for which the batteries value chain is responsible of a large part of the market. You go from 6% for cobalt to about half for lithium and more than 10% for nickel and natural graphite. With reference to internationally existing codes, ILO, ECD, etc., of course, a pair of jeans is not a battery, a car battery. So the critical aspects can be a bit different, but conceptually, the idea is there. And this is why, for instance, I would expect, but I mean, put a big pinch of salt on what I'm about to say, to have as outcome of the Commission proposal a framework regulation on the SPI, which then mandates the development of specific product-specific requirements to secondary legislation. I was mentioning, you know, I wasn't even mentioning, I was reading basically from the Circular Economy Action Plan, the priority products there. And you can see immediately from there that you have, you know, cement is not furniture, which is not textiles, etc., or electronics. On top of this, we also are together, DG Environment, ourselves, and DG Energy, testing a bit the limits of the current regulatory framework for eco-design and energy labeling. We have now in the pipeline in DG Grow, we have a funny division of labor between the three DGs, but we all manage different groups of products doing the secondary legislation for eco-design. And we want to see what's possible to do. The next two big things in DG Grow are smartphones and tablets, and PV panels and systems. And we want to test what's possible to do already with the current regulatory framework, not least because I don't know how many Brussels outsiders are there among the audience, but Brussels insiders are very well familiar with the biblical times of the regulatory cycle. On average, from impact assessment to adoption by Council and Parliament, without taking into account transitional periods or phasing periods, we're talking about 4.5 years. And this is why, by the way, and then I stop. You know, I have to leave at 15. Sorry, I have a medical appointment which was scheduled a long time ago. Nothing too bad though. And this is why we have a particular responsibility in trying to make our legislation, when we design it, strongly impact assessed and future proof.
Yes, indeed, because you're setting you're pathing the ways for more circularity. Neil, how do you how have you prioritized the different design principle depending on the product groups? I guess Sylvia mentioned the German study, whose link we will put on the chat or follow up. But looking at the German study, she looks at 4 products. Mainly there were electronics, whereas the Circular Economy Action Plans goes beyond electronics products. I mean, how do you prioritize the different design principle, and what do you expect from the manufacturers and the retailers in these matters? You're muted.
As Stefano was saying, it makes sense to deal with this on a product group by product group basis, because as he said, cement is in textiles and so on. And as he explained, the scope that we're looking at is for basically all types of products. It's very important. I mean, I mentioned earlier that a small change in design can have a massive impact later on. So I know that Sylvia and other colleagues are working on a project called Prompt, which is looking at durability and obsolescence of products. For one example, take a washing machine. There are just 2 things: it's the electronics and the bearings, which account for more than 50% of failures of washing machines. So if you can apply criteria relating to those, you're really addressing the problem with potentially small changes in design, small costs, but with a massive impact later on, whether it's being able to take out the electronics in 30 seconds, separated out from the rest of the washing machine, or have standards for bearings, or replacement times for bearings. I mean, you have to. It's inevitably going to be technical. Huh? I mean, when we get to the stage of implementing measures or whatever to define for particular product groups, it's going to differ, and it's going to be fairly technical, because we're talking about something which will bite. It's legislative, and we're talking about making sure we keep the level playing field. So we will have to do it on a product by product basis, and it will have to be according to where the real challenges for durability are. But there's one thing which I think would be interesting to mention also, because Sylvia was mentioning the savings for consumers from more durable products. In sort of, I mean, if you look at the life term, the overall life cost of a product, that's very true, that you will generally save money. And of course, we want to get away from the sort of gilets jaunes idea, perception that being green is more expensive necessarily. And I'm wondering personally how you as retailers will deal with this, because it may mean selling less stuff, but it may also mean, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean reduced turnovers and profits, but it may mean sort of also changing the way you look in the services that you offer to consumers in terms of after sales services and so on. I was wondering if I can turn the tables on you as the chair to ask you a little bit if your members in EuroCommerce are looking at how they're going to deal with that.
Well, I think we will have good examples of leading companies after that. But I think indeed it's one of the key questions, is that how do you internalize the externalities of your products without making the prices rise too high. I mean, it's beyond non-food; it's also within food products. I mean, there's no political will to make the food prices more expensive and to make the products more expensive. So it is a challenge for the sectors at different level. One is because we have very low margin. How do we incorporate the sustainability requirement? And also, how do you ensure that SMEs, which is 90% or 99% of the sector, is also joining this journey? And indeed, I think you have touched upon some solutions. There's no silver bullet solutions, but it's some big retailers who have an impact on their own products can also try to see how they can optimize and make their products more sustainable at design and conception phase and production phase. But also this development of business model is one of the key solutions we can see, because we don't sell products the way we've been doing it 50 years ago. And I think I'm happy to represent a very innovative sectors as well into also how do we respond to such challenges. And it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to ensure that we also respond to citizen and consumers' requests on these matters. And I think that's also why we organize such events. And I will stop my monologue after that. Is also to ensure that it's a joint project and it's a team effort. I mean, it's really, we keep on calling for cooperation, but that really makes sense for us. You don't have recycled content if you don't have the right infrastructures to collect and recycle your products. You don't have on textile, it's a huge opportunity, but you don't have the right sustainable textile if you don't have the right secondary market for raw materials. So it's beyond what we can do, but what we can help is to also define where when the challenges are and where we can actually help the consumer. Another issue we have is that we're all busy as consumer and citizen. We hate going shopping, grocery shopping. How do we ensure that consumer can make the right sustainable choice within 40 seconds? Because that's usually the time you spend on your choice in the market. And here it's really a joint effort about better information, better resourcing, and so on. I can see that there is a question from Rosanna on the chat. To you, Stefano, and to William, apart from product-specific rules in secondary legislation, can we expect general sustainability principle and requirements enshrined already in the Sustainable Product Initiative?
look, adoption is planned for the end of March. Bit of patience, give time to the colleagues to draft the instrument.
Yeah. You're still muted, Neil.
We're at the we're still working on the impact assessment, so I think we have to wait until people above our pay grade are making some of the discussions and the decisions. But yeah.
Okay. Is there any final remarks you'd like to convey before I leave the floor to the second panel? Sylvia, maybe you want to react to what's been exchanged?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe on the last point, I think the idea really for us is also there are differences across products, of course, and different sustainability aspects to look into depending on the product. Of course, you're not looking at software upgrades when you're dealing with textile and so on. But I think what we're looking at with this, possibly revised Ecodesign directive is to create this kind of, as Stefano was also saying, a framework regulation. We would like to see a coherent approach towards sustainability when dealing with products. So some sort of indeed circularity principles or sustainability principles that are enshrined in the text of the directive, so that they can guide the development of sector-specific legislation in kind of a checklist way, if we want, so that we make sure that when a sustainability aspect is important for this specific product, the sustainability aspect is checked consistently and across products and sectors. So I think this, just drawing from the question in the chat, I think this could be an interesting way to see the thing.
Yes, thank you very much. I can see some questions in the chat, and maybe I can invite speakers to answer directly in writing. These questions will be taken into account when drafting the output document that we will also do in partnership with the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform. Thank you very much for this setting the wide framework of these questions. I'm happy to also see that we all going in this right direction, and I would like to use this opportunity to maybe invite the other speakers to join in. So please put your camera on. Thank you, Stefano, for your time. Good luck with your medical appointment, and speak soon. So the second panel, of course, aims to look at some practical example about and presenting the journey of circular design in major retail retail companies. So I have the opportunity and the honor to have IKEA, Decathlon, and H&M Group to present how they're trying to provide their own input and their own solutions to more circular design and more sustainable products. We're also very honored to have a representative of the European Parliament, which is Mrs. Sherpa Pekinainen, that will have the opportunity to react and challenge our panelists onto their own journey, because you've been involved in circularity and sustainable policy for quite some time now, and it's very a pleasure to have you here and to join the debate. So without further ado, maybe I will leave the floor to Mirza Razidovic, sorry, I should have asked first, who is a range engineer leader at IKEA. He's been at IKEA for 12 years now, and you are involved in and you contribute to the development of the IKEA circular product assessment methodology. Without further ado, if you want to share your screen and do your presentation, I'll leave you the floor.
Thank you very much. Let me know when you see my presentation. Oops.
They should come.
I'll try one more time.
Yes. Otherwise, I have it open. Huh? Ah,
Right.
seems that it should be coming. Stick the black. Yes, we can see it.
Okay, super. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I work with the range of product development in IKEA and have been working with developing circular design. What we want to achieve with this is a better everyday life for the many people within the boundary of the planet. We are convinced that sustainability should not and cannot be a luxury for the few people, but it has to be democratized, it has to be accessible, it has to be affordable for the many people in order to really make a change. What we see, and we all see, I think, is that having circular products, prolonging the life of products, has a tremendous impact on the climate. And by working on that, and by the end, recovering the material values through recyclability and putting them into new product, we are also opening up new opportunities to expand the business. We can look into, if you take internal research, we have shown that our products are in average resold 2.9 times throughout their lifetime already. And if we can work on that, if we can engage in that, we can probably both find new opportunities to interact with the customers, but also make more changes into how do we prolong the life of products, how we preserve their value and their existence in this society before it becomes recycled. We want to avoid landfill completely by closing the loop, by at some point when the products are obsolete, that we recover the materials and put them into a new loop. Hopefully also recover some of the parts and put them into new products as well. But what we see we want to do first and foremost is to prolong the life and the reusability of products. So we keep looping that as much as possible, as far as it goes. At some point, we know that most products will break, that's evident. And to enable a refurbishment in a smart way, in an affordable way, so it can go back to be reused, it can be change owner, etc., etc. And that it's looping as much as possible until at some point it's beyond repair and then is recycled. But first comes first. What we see here is important for us to develop and look into is that the relationship with our customer needs to continue beyond the first point of sales. It is about offering new services. It is about offering new solutions, new interaction points, all that to engage in how to prolong the life of products in a smart way, in a seamless way as well. And so we preserve their value. It's also about staying in tune with our customer streams and needs along that way. But all that starts with the design of the products. It starts by looking into and designing products with circular capabilities to be able to be reused and cared for, to be able to be repurposed and adapted. We have, since many years back, offered kitchens that are very adaptable. You can change the appearance, you can change the function, you can change the size, you can play a lot with the kitchen. Also, after you have bought your first kitchen and see and your needs changes. We have done the same with sofas, we have done the same with storage furniture as well. But what we see here is that this idea of adaptability, it can be expanded for the same product types, as I mentioned, but it can also be expanded to other product types where that has not necessarily been considered initially to be able to be adaptable. And this is the stretch that we as a company are want to have, and need to continue to have, to being humble about that we have a lot of things to learn here, where we have done some good things already, maybe without knowing it sometimes, and to really reinforce that further. It's also about repair, making our products repairable as well. It also starts with the design. It starts with making smart choices to what affects the durability, but also what affects the affordability. We have offered spare parts for quite a long time as well. But now with this, with another approach, with a circular approach in mind, it's also about really thinking about how do we what spare parts do we need to make available that will truly make a difference beyond the first life. So we can loop, as I mentioned before, as much as possible before it's beyond repair. And that also puts efforts, puts needs of us to have smart designs in the background, in the construction, in the standardizations, in the interfaces, and all those small things that actually can matter to enable a spare part that lives long, well beyond actually we stop selling a specific product. We are tackling this all by applying our design principles to when we develop products. We have developed 8 design principles that helps us translate the concept into specific properties, where each design principle covers a specific area and describes that. What we have done is that we have looked at 9,500 of our products, the unique products we have, and we looked into what makes this product circular. What is the context it's used? How is it used in the life at home? And for this, we have ended up in creating specific circular recipes for these products. So these 8 design principles as a base, we have then identified circular recipes, what makes each product a circular for each of these design principles. So we can address the needs of the customers and may be circular not in theory, but also be circular in practice as well. And today it is an integrated part of our business plan and our product development. And of course, we are on a journey where 2030, we are planning to be 100% circular. There are 3 key lessons that we have drawn that I would like to share with you along this process. The first one is very much echoing what the panel before was onto. We can see that there is not one size fits all when it comes to circular product development recipes. What makes a product circular will differ quite a lot. If we talk about a drinking glass versus a bed linen versus a working chair or a kitchen. And this is what we need to address in a way so it makes sense. What is it that makes this specific product circular? So we can address that specific point. So this is the first one, not one size fits all. The second one is that when it comes to material, it is such a fundamental part of the product. It sets the cost level significantly. It affects that, it affects the expression, it affects the durability, it affects many of the different things. And we can see that one of the main challenges is to be able to choose renewable recycled materials and also to choose materials that are recyclable today. The availability is limited. It's not recyclable due to the technology limitations. And many times, most often, it comes to a premium price as well. All that put on the customers, of course. And that is something that we see we need to be able to avoid. We need to be able to work with incentives in a way. And this is where we are turning a bit to the legislators as well. How can we incentivize the transformation to a circular economy, to be more sustainable? How can we incentivize and stimulate development, responsible entrepreneurship? So we really make it that it's not to choose and buy a sustainable product as a consumer is not the best choice for the planet only, but it actually is the best choice for the consumer itself. It is the most affordable choice. It is the best product actually for them. I think if you can incentivize this transformation, that is where we see that we can probably get tremendous movements across. And of course, companies, all of us, have a responsibility in this as well, in terms of the development, innovation, in terms of reinventing ourselves also and how we work. The third point is to harmonize definitions. we are all aware of that consumers, we ourselves, are integrating locally, we are integrating regionally, we are integrating globally, across country borders every day, sometimes without even leaving the walls of our home. And this is the reality. And here it becomes very important to harmonize the definitions across the borders when we talk about, you were onto it before, durability or lifespan or something else that is important. So we can really make the products comparable to the customers with relevant information available for them and enabling them to make informed choices. So we are not stimulating creative marketing among the different companies, but we actually are creating true movements and transformation that matters. With those 3 points and the brief background, I would like to thank for myself, and as we say in IKEA, it's a glorious future ahead.
That's very optimistic and positive. Thank you for this concluding remarks, and thank you for the whole presentation about how you kind of integrate the circularity principle into your whole business model. And I think the adaptability point is quite vital. Without further ado, I'd like to invite my colleague from Decathlon, Bertrand Tison, to just come and present what he does, what you do as well, but what Decathlon does for integrating circular design within your own business model. As a bit of a background, you joined Decathlon in 1995 as financial controller in the headquarters of in Lille, and you spent quite a lot of time outside to also help into expanding the business strategy of Decathlon, both in China, in Northern Asia, and in the USA. Now, since 2020, you have opened the Decathlon Public Affairs office in Brussels, and I will just now leave you the floor to discuss. We can see your presentation, so that's great.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Very glad to join this webinar today, and that's good to speak after my friends of IKEA, because I do believe we are aligned on very much of those principles. So just today, I would like to illustrate our circularity strategies with a couple of product examples, and to see how through those products we can try to close that so-called loop for circularity. So as a first example, on the most impactful step as a company, we are fully integrated. So we do design to retail, and 80% of our impact basically relies on the product itself. So if you look at the Ecodesign stage, we have implemented our own methodology that relies basically on continuous improvement with a better impact on, first of all, carbon emission and natural resources. So if you see this home trainer, so the trick was not to take off the wheels. The trick was basically to go from a metallic frame to a wooden one. Doing so, on that particular product, we decreased by more than 25% the carbon footprint, plus other impacts on natural resources. So Ecodesign is core to our strategy. We have currently around 15 to 20% of our category of products under Ecodesign right now. The goal is 30% by 2022, and 100% of our ranges will have an Ecodesign process implemented by 2026. So first is Ecodesign, and it's basically where we can have the most impact. The second example is through repair. So we, again, waiting for harmonization and definition, we are implementing our own repairability index. So it's a scoring from 0 to 10. And basically, each product engineer would start shaping its product and answering this kind of questionnaire. Do I have documentation ready? Do I have spare parts available for this product? Is this product has some disassemblability criteria? And is a service in our workshop available to repair those products? So again, If you take this example of the ski boots, we totally redesign, re-engineer it in order to increase that scoring. Another kind of product to enhance the repairability is self-repair. So if you see this kind of kit for repair, which is available for in our stores today, it can compel and increase the lifespan of many of our products. And obviously, this material is also recyclable. So repair is key. We do have services, workshops in many of our stores. And I think we have to go beyond and to connect locally with another ecosystem of local provider to increase repair as a service for our customers. Number three would be reuse. Well, this is an example of a recent campaign that we have done in Belgium regarding, encouraging our customers not to over-consume during the Black Friday event, but to basically bring back their unused products that they have in their garage right now, and to keep on the discussion with our customers on how they can make a change and a difference, and giving a second chance to their product. The last one would be to close the loop, recyclability. So we basically started with the easy one, with some single material products like this body surfboard, which is made out of foam. And when it comes to having this single material, the recyclability process is definitely easier. It's way more complicated when you go to multi-material products such as technical textiles. If you look at these running t-shirts, which is breathable, you have moisture, you have sweating management. So it's not one single material to make this useful and specific for our customers who run on a regular basis. So this is, to me, the next challenge to tackle, how to address and this complexity of multi-material, especially for textile. We definitely believe that the product passport would help for the identification of the composition of such products, and obviously we have to boost recycling facilities in the EU to address the last part of this loop. Yeah, so this is pretty much, thank you so much, the four examples of 4 parts of that circularity loop that we are addressing right now. Thank you.
Many thanks. I really appreciated your product-specific example, looking at the different aspects of the design. Also, quite impressed with the 100% target of having all of your products eco-designed by 2026. I think it's great in terms of showcasing where the retail can help. Last but not least, we've been from hard products to more softer products. Now we can get Pascal Moreau explaining us or presenting us H&M group strategy for circular products. Pascal, after working in the ICT and healthcare industries, you've been working for H&M Group for the past 2 years, where you focus on EU policy related to sustainability, from circularity, transparency, traceability, due diligence, and others. Without further ado, I just leave you the floor to present H&M's sustainability strategy.
Thank you, Isabel. Hi, everyone. I don't have a presentation, so you have to bear with me and see my face on screen. But I will share later on the link to H&M Group's information of the specific tool that we launched a week ago, and I will describe a bit more today. I'm really happy to hear Bertrand and Mersha's presentation, because really supporting all their points, you will hear a lot of what they're saying and what I'm going to say. But a bit of an intro to H&M Group's sustainability strategy for you all to see where we come from. So we have a vision to become 100 circular. So as the 2 other presenters were saying, it's part of an ecosystem. Circularity, it's not only circular design, but you need to have the infrastructures. You need to ensure there is circular business model also backing up our actions. So it's a whole. And we also have a goal to become climate positive by 2040 in our full supply chain. And how do we actually support those overarching goals and ambition with concrete targets that are related to circular design? So by the end of 2030, we aim at only using 100% recycled or other sustainability source material. And by 2025, only, we have a target, sorry, of 30% recycled material. And by 2025, that was just announced last week, we aim to have all our product designed for circularity. How do we want to achieve this? It's through our new tool that we launched, as I said, last week, Circulator. And here I'm posting it on the chat, the link, so you will have it. But I will explain you at the moment all of this. So Circulator is the tool that will support designers through the development of a new product, similar to what IKEA is doing with their recipe for product. That's a similar approach as we are taking. And this guidance have been developed with a broad range of internal and external experts, such as a Global Change Award winner, Circular Fashion, and also the idea is to support the realization of Ellen MacArthur Foundation for the vision of a circular fashion industry. So we're really embedding their vision into our tool. So the Circulator consists of two parts, the guides that you can download directly from the link that I sent you, and a digital scoring tool that will come later on. On the link that I sent you, you will also have access to a demo to like maybe understanding a bit more what I'm going to explain you right now on a more theoretical approach. So what we want to make sure through Circulator and through our circular approach is to ensure that clothes are made to be recirculated. So in a nutshell, is to ensure that those clothes or shoes and accessories can be reused in all the circular business models. Hence, the link that also Misha made is really important to have circular business model and product design very much connected. And obviously, there is no one-size-fits-all solution to design for circularity. Hence, when we look into these guidelines, we actually are thinking first at what is the product purpose and how it's considered to be used by customer. So how often should it be used? How long will it be used? How much wear and tear? Will it be for purchase or for rental? All of this defines the product purpose, and the product purpose will then influence or guide decisions on which material and component to be used. So focusing there at material and component level on the environmental impact, durability, and recyclability, and also on the design strategy. So design strategy can be related to repairability, reuse, durability, and others. So let's say an additional layer of decisions. And with this product purpose approach and design strategy approach, we want also to make sure that there is a trade-off between durability and recyclability, and that whatever products we put on the market is actually contributing to the full ecosystem of circularity. So hence circular business model. What are the next steps? So we launched, as I said last week, the tool. We will launch really soon, before the end of 2021, so in the coming weeks, a complete collection from H&M brand of clothes, accessory, and shoes that have been designed following the guidance. Also, we really call on companies that are in our sector to look at those guidelines and be inspired and apply them. So for example, we're in partnership already with PVH and ASOS for them to have a look at it and apply the guidance into their own collections. And based on the feedback and practical learning from this guidance, we will also have a new phase, which would be the scoring tool, and it will be launched in the coming years. So really to have not only the guidance, but having a scoring so that you can improve in the long term. So based on this and a bit related to what IKEA and Decathlon has been calling on to policymakers, we really would like to ensure that the SPI and the Ecodesign legislation, when there will be some criteria put on the table, that the principle of design for purpose is included, because it's really key to ensure that actually you're driving positive impact on the ground and that the products are made to be integrated in this eco-design, circular ecosystem, better said. So yeah, there are really huge enablers for circular business models, and we really call on coherence and coordination between all the legislation that are coming up in the next months, not only SPI and eco-design, but as Stefano, I think, was saying, or William, the link to taxonomy would be key for, at least for our sector, and also PF policies, because all of these policies in the making are defining key concepts of circularity, and we need to ensure they are coherent and they are aligned. So in a nutshell, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you to the three of you, and thank you, Pascal, for your point on circularity and your circulator tool. I mean, I really like the fact that you just mentioned that you need to integrate circular business model in product design. I think it was quite interesting. And this core index can only but relate to all of what the initiative we can see at EU, but also at national level. And maybe looking at the three panelists, I think we all agree on the necessity to kind of have harmonization and consistency at EU level, but also at within the national member states. But I would like to maybe ask Sirpa to just maybe you want to react or ask some questions to the panelists and present what your expectations are regarding circular design. And I can also invite other participants to provide some input on the chat. Please do so. We have John and Doreen that are quite active, but I know there are others participants. So if you're not asleep yet or not too starving, please share your thoughts and comments on the chat and ask your questions directly to the audience. Sirpa, please, here is your floor.
Thank you very much for the whole discussion, and of course for these company examples that clearly show I do not need to preach you about what is circularity and what needs to happen and what is the resource efficiency, scale and challenge globally. So, and this is the first point. I think that on the first point, you can hear as a sound bite whether the company gets the point or not. And if you are on the other end, you are talking only about recycling and reusing recycled materials, and that really doesn't lead to the right solution quite often. There are very important messages, and I just would like to, when I was challenged to raise the bar, to do it some connections and then leave with some of the suggestions and questions. But my first one would be that please do the backcasting approach in your planning. That means take into account more people, more goods, shorter time span, and you know the whole story. So the ambition level would need to be the end of the rainbow with 1/10 of the resources. Better profits for the company, better service, be it serviced products or direct products for the consumers, and better competitiveness for those who do it. And hopefully that sort of gets out of the box thinking that quite often takes a bit of a time in the companies. The second there is that I'm a bit sort of addicted at the moment of what I call ecological competence or ecosystem competence. This doesn't mean that you hire a engineer who has graduated for environmental studies or biologist, but you know what I mean. This kind of people with a bigger mind. And if you do not have on your boards that kind of a people, if you do not have a ecological competence in the CEO, and this is my very bold sort of a statement, because I'm graduated from the Helsinki School of Economics and Business Administration and served in company boards. Everybody understands you couldn't be on that position and say, well, actually, I don't know if the company is doing the profit or if it is on highly debt. Please ask our economic advisor or our economic director. He's the guy dealing with these figures. I'm just sort of CEO and having the bigger strategies on my mind. So you need to have a certain level of understanding if you serve in any higher position in the company about economics and the consequences of actions on the economics. And my claim is that as illiterate as this kind of an economic illiterate CEO or board member would be nowadays, tomorrow it is the same with ecosystem and the ability to combine environment and economy and ecological competence. And this is a huge task for the companies to re-educate their directors and to recruit that kind of a CEOs. We all know those names and figures who have it, because those give you the, as I can hear, the inspiration, the leverage, and the possibilities to do it on concrete level. And then the boards that give the same message for the company itself. And this combined with the ambition level, because we do not have time, as you know, to fix it many times if we get sidetracked with our efforts and investments. Then the third one, and this is combined with please lobby politicians. It is very amazing that still about 80-90% of the contacts that I get from whatever size of the business that is, or associations, it is no, don't do, and Europe will lose the competitiveness and can't be done, and too ambitious. And it's still with the climate and energy efficiency and even with recycling. And this is very strong lobby, and that's why the majority of the politicians tend to be less active and radical than the average business, enlightened business actors. And if we can't upgrade the other kind of lobbying from H&M, from IKEA, and so on, we cannot get the change in political atmosphere. Sometimes it's a bit of a funny when I talk with the business leaders. They think they are not supposed to lobby so harshly for regulation. But if that is the regulation that is needed for the businesses to flourish, and if then sort of downgrading, let's say the taxonomy, you might know the fights, that actually is not neutral. It is actually harmful for your business that you're looking forward. And then the politicians would need to get that message that please do not destroy our business, that actually we need this to succeed. Then a couple of points, and this is where I'm sort of getting closer to discussion. Firstly, the indicators, and that goes to taxonomy and on PEFs and the ecosystem indicator accounting and the IFRS in the future, where you know it is to be. It needs to be science-based. And this is very problematic, as you know, when the member states tend to lobby. We, of course, are perfect with our forests in Finland. Please do not tell that we would need to change anything. And German cars have always been perfect. And the coal is very useful and clean in Poland. And so we always downgrade what needs to happen. And then we would need to have a strong voice that it needs to be science-based. and if the politics can't provide it, then, as you know, there are a lot of these kind of emerging voluntary caucuses to create that kind of a international benchmark and reporting database to use. And this would be because otherwise we get, if you get wrong figures and wrong levels, then you get wrong answers. And that is sort of the basis on me. Then the second is that while, as you said, this needs new kind of a business ecosystems, and there's a lot of regulation coming up on the company sustainability reporting and the ESG due diligence. There it is. What do you do with the big change? And this is in all of your companies, that the big question, because you might have 10 to 20, I assume, levels of deliverers on your production chain. And if you do not know, and if you do not have the contract rules, what happens on the first or second level, then we are going to get lost and getting externalities. This means also that we would need on legislative basis much stronger and harsher extended producer liability. But with that, we would need to have a much harsher and stronger producer rights and owner rights. Because if some of you decide you would need to create your own sort of a repurchasing or servicing systems, and with this kind of a product passport, you would need to know where it is, and you would need to be able to, let's say, if I break your chair or a mobile phone, to be able to make me to pay for it because it's your product that I'm just using and paying for the use, not the degradation or whatever. And this is something that kind of a bit of a gray area that I hope that the Commission and we all could set a bit more emphasize together. So how really to safeguard the ownership of the materials, packing materials, and throughout the whole production chain. And that means also that we need, just to underline it, a substantial steps with the Ecodesign directive, because all what you are doing should be on regularly put in place as compulsory framework. First repair, then reuse, then fix it, then repurpose, then lastly reuse as a material. And out of that, basically you shouldn't go, because you need to design out of the waste and all that you said already. And then we would need to find that kind of channel to sort of put together the voluntary actions, what you are doing, sort of showing to politicians, this is doable, we are doing it already. And I don't know your figures, but you all know the famous interface carpet company that got with its activities beyond the 10, the factor 10. So, because no one is going to regulate if they do not believe it's doable. But then we would need to have the regulation for level playing field, and we would need to have the consumer information and that kind of a pull effect for that kind of a products. And there we need the labels, we need the traffic light systems, we need that kind of other regulatory forms to give the guidance and information for the consumers. What is the difference of different kind of goods? And of course, then that it is not this kind, the taxonomy is a bit too rigid. It is actually a calculation, a bit like accounting, that you have the continuum of different uses and emissions, and that one who gets lowest level is sort of the benchmarkable point, the 1/10 or 20% to be labeled green, and then some others are somewhere in between. And then if you consume 10 times more energy to produce concrete, then probably you should be labeled significant harm, and to create that kind of information, sort of a channel there. Well, then very briefly, the questions. Firstly is, what are your feelings about what would be needed to kick off really the service economy? And this goes to this producer right side that I hear often. Then the second one is when you probably go very carefully through the legislation. Well, and hopefully we can come back on that later on too. What is your expectations for the regulation? What is that so-called smart regulation, to put in Ecodesign directive, to be put? For example, we are in Parliament pushing that it would be compulsory in public procurement to procure or at least comply or explain that kind of environmentally friendly, more sustainable choices, and always to use the products as services if that is possible. So there are a lot of that kind of things that we could use as a pull effect, not only to say not or to say at least minimum, but to create the markets for the activities. And one is the consumer information, of course. Then one is the incentives like taxonomy, but I'll just leave it to you. Very happy to hear your comments on there. And then, of course, last but not least, while I'm very happy to hear all the plans, what you have now and in the future, but what do you find the most difficult? Is it the suppliers? Is it the regulation? Is it the 20 centimeters between the ears? That means sort of getting the design and the whole product going, because it is a paradigm change how that activity works. Or what actually are the most burning issues for you? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's three very interesting questions. We have only 3 minutes, so that will be quite challenging. And on top of that, I'd like to add another question that is in on the chat regarding the science-based criteria. We have questions by Francesca about CO2 emission becoming most important data about product green performance, and how you integrate the CO2 into your science-based indicator methodology. So I have 4 questions. What is needed to kick off the service economy? What are expectations regarding the smart regulation? What is the highest difficulty in order to get product more durable? And how do you envisage the CO2 or the carbon measurement as in the near future? I leave the floor to the panelists, whoever feels the urge to answer first, and then whoever wants to follow up. Mirza, you're unmuted, so I guess you want to react.
I can start, of course. I think that going a little bit back to what I think all three of us have stated in one way or another, I think it goes back to the affordability aspect as well, that we make a push from the consumer, so the consumer's choices are fully aligned with what we want to achieve from a sustainability point of view in a global scale. And if we get that, then the companies will get a push to be able to comply with the customer needs, just as the suppliers will get a push to comply with their customers' needs as well. So for us, it's really about the incentivization. So we focus on creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship to come up with ideas that maybe none of us is thinking of today. Regulations are very important as well as a base to set a frame in place, but it needs to also be smart so it's not limiting the innovation. So companies focus on avoiding it or complying with it instead of focusing on smart solutions, because I think we all can recognize that we are in a transformation mode and not on the end station, most of us, especially as a world in total. So I think that would be the main thing. And CO2 is the overarching thing that is for sure the biggest part. And we can see that from our aspect, during the design and production, that is the main part where we have the CO2 emissions. And if you can get that smart and then prolong the life of product, so we don't need to produce that product over and over again, that has a tremendous impact on CO2 as a starting point.
Yes, thank you very much. Bertrand, Pascal, do you want to react?
I'm happy to go quickly first, Bertrand, if you want, and I'll leave you the last word. And maybe more focusing on what you were asking, Sirpa, on what we will need to accelerate the service models. We have in our position paper, I'm happy to circulate it to everyone because it's a public document, one part on circular business model. And as you hinted towards to Sirpa, there is that part on tax and financial incentives. So lower VAT for circular business model, for example. Also, when we were discussing with our experts, there was also the idea of reforming the current tax system to integrate traditional retail into circular business model, new circular model. So that, for example, retailer brands are currently required to pay tax twice when they're engaging in EuroCommerce models. So that would break the profitability of new models, thinking of all of that. And also providing financial support to SMEs. And one of the big things to ensure the service model and circular business model pick it up, to really all that infrastructure is set in place. Bertrand was talking about it, but developing collection, sorting, and recycling hubs for textile in all EU regions, that's really gonna be the tipping point to really ensure circular business model are picked up, and to have waste not being seen as waste, but as resources. So end of waste criteria, definition of waste is really be key. But I could go on and on, but I know we are over time.
Yes, thank you, Bertrand. In 2 minutes, and then we can leave the audience.
Yeah, in line with what has been said, I do like the approach of being science-based. So is it CO2? I think it's not limited to CO2 because the issue is complex. So I guess PEF that we definitely endorse is something that we are really looking for, because basically today the consumer is pretty clear. A price tag is not enough to make my choice, and I have 40 seconds. So we rely on harmonized methods to, in a blink of an eye, giving the insight and the confidence, because it's EU-based purchase, that it's a safe choice, it's a sustainable choice. So to make that benchmark, we asked to basically all of us use pretty much the same, segmented data, and to that comparison to become possible for consumers' standpoint.
Thank you very much. I think that was pretty clear from the three of you. Sherpa, you want to take 1 minute as a concluding remark? But before you do, I just want to thank everyone for joining. I think that was quite interesting. But yeah, please go ahead if you want to have some remarks.
Thank you, Isabel, and thank you for organizing this event. I hope that you could organize with this audience and even larger in the future, a bit of the same kind of a discussions. I hope that we all can still actively stay in contact and go more in detail to these very important points like the cost effect, what Mirza said. More you talked about the VAT. I just took a note of your both comments, and let's see, because we have going to have the VAT change now ahead of us, what we could do there. And as Pedro, you said about the marking and the knowledge, sort of expanding the energy efficiency labeling, for example, to all of the products and the sustainability footprint, however that then would be. Very good advice, very good event. And thank you, very good work what you all are doing for better future. I always get so inspired and hopeful for the future after these kind of a discussions. And now thank you very much and hope that you have a very nice week.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the other organization who helped me co-organize this event. I'm speaking of the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform, but also the EIT material that has been extremely helpful into getting this event running. You will hear back from us both with the recordings, but also the presentation and with the output document. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining the LinkedIn group, and stay safe, as we say. Please do. Have a lovely day, and speak to you all soon, very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.